Welcome back. This is Nathan Hurd, Chief Growth Officer with the Oxford Club, and this is the Survive and Thrive series, where it's our goal to answer one specific question. Looking back on all this, what would it take to view it as one of the most valuable experiences of our lifetimes? Now, no matter what happens, no matter how long this goes on, what twists and turns lie ahead, there are valuable lessons to be taken from what we're going through today that will help us make us stronger and better on the other side of this. Now, I think what we're going to go through today, I'm going to walk you through a very simple exercise, but powerful. You'll find both liberating and extremely useful, not only today, but for many months and years into the future. It's no secret that this whole experience has brought up a lot of conflicting emotions for all of us, right? All across the world. I don't think I've seen this level of fear, certainly in my lifetime, but for many decades at the very least. And if your heart is beating today, your human response, your natural response is to be triggered by all this. This is like the perfect recipe for fear, right? I mean, it affects our health, our wealth, our economy, our future. And so wherever you are today, I want you to know it's very normal to feel those feelings. We all are. But let me give you a couple examples. I have a close family friend who's 83. And I recently spoke with him and he talked about how he's Hungarian. He escaped the Nazi regime in World War II. And recently he's been feeling some of that past trauma has been surfacing. The breakdown of society and some of these really traumatic emotions he once felt. Ironically, in the paper this weekend, I was reading, there's an article about this very thing. There are believed to be 400,000 survivors of the Holocaust alive today. And many of them are reverting back to some of those past emotions, most emotional states. And so I've also heard from many of you. And I want to thank you for the letters. Please keep them coming. I've read every single one. And some of you were talking about how you made investments right before this all occurred. And you're now feeling frozen or paralyzed. You want to take the next right step. You're not sure exactly what it is. Today will help with that. Some of you are talking about how you're stuck in a completely different country from some of your loved ones, your parents or your children who may have this, and you feel helpless to support them. And in many cases, you've also written to share stories of gratitude and appreciation. You've been able to realize how much you have to be thankful for. But all of us, even if we're having many of those moments where we feel good, it's a very natural response to have fear in a moment like this. You may not call it fear, by the way, but don't let words get in the way. Oftentimes we say we're stressed. I often say that. Or we feel tense, or maybe you feel uncertain, or you just feel lost. Wherever you are, those are normal feelings, but it is extremely important that we call them out for what they are and move beyond them. And I'll tell you why. Last week, we started by looking at some of the different areas that make up a fulfilling life, right? And if you haven't seen the video, please feel free to go back and take a look. But, whether it's our health or our finances or our business or our relationships, or our own personal growth, or contribution. All of those are affected by fear. I don't have to tell you. If you make decisions throughout this experience that are underpinned by fear, even if it's not overt, if it's back there somewhere, are those going to be the best decisions you're capable of making? I can tell you in my own life, I've had moments where I was absolutely I was making decisions from a fearful place. I've made terrible investment decisions. I've been very bad business decisions. I even had, 4 years ago, I was in a really bad place with my marriage, all because I was making decisions from a place of fear. And even at the beginning of all this, I didn't know what to do with this at the first few days, but I went through an exercise I'm about to show you. And my experience has been very different ever since, and I know yours will be too. So I promise what we're going to walk through, it's going to take a little bit of thought on your part, but you will be in a position to make decisions from a place of strength when we're done. And this is extremely important as we go through what to do with your money, what to do with your family or your friendships, what to do with your health. So if you're up for that, let's get started. We're gonna do a simple exercise, and it's really making two lists, okay? So you need a piece of paper and you need something to write with, and we're gonna make two very simple lists. So if you need to pause and go grab something to write with, go for it. Otherwise, we'll get started. On one side of the page, you can do this top to bottom, left to right, whatever works for you. On one side, we're gonna make a list of what are those stressful thoughts. I'm a big believer in calling things for what they are. And I'm fortunate to know a number of very successful people. And a lot of them are really working hard to, make the most of this experience. And the single biggest differentiator is their psychology. I mean, think about it. If you know all the right things to do intellectually, if you know the right investments to make, but you're coming from a place of fear, are you necessarily going to execute on that information the way you might otherwise? The answer is no. Fear can, really influence the quality of our decisions, which is why it's so important to just take a minute and look at it for what it is and then move past it. And so take a second and write down, what are your most stressful thoughts? And I'll give you an example. One of my thoughts early on in this was things are never going to be the same. And I found all sorts of different versions of that got me worked up early on. And what I was really saying, what I was really fearful of anyway, was what does that mean for me? Remember, fear is a survival instinct, and it's extremely helpful in certain scenarios. But here, now, most of what we're focused on has to do with the implications for ourselves, and there's one other quality, which is that oftentimes these are things that are outside of our control. So you put those two together, you're worried about the implications for yourself and you can't control it, and you really start to feel helpless, right? Or you start to just feel very confused. And so it's important to get them on a page so that you can pull them out of you and start to free yourself from these thoughts, feelings, whatever they are. So take a minute and write down, what are the things that largely are outside of your control and that, are focused on you, the concerns that you have about yourself or, feelings you might experience or how your life may change, and get them on the page. And I'll give you just a second. I'm going to write down a thing or two and then we'll come back. If you need to pause to take a few minutes, please do. It's worth taking the time just to get all this stuff out of your head, and then you don't have to keep it there anymore. So take a minute and I'll be right back with you. Now, we're gonna make one other list. And again, very simple, but it's not, it's simple in spirit. It may take some thought on your part, and it's worth pursuing this side. It's worth thinking this through. So we're now gonna look at and come up with what are some truths that are empowering, that are real, and that are within your control. So on this side, and by the way, let me first say, I am not suggesting that you come up with some fluffy idea that's gonna make you feel good, but isn't really real. I want you to really think about what's an alternative truth to what you put over here for each one that is truly real and that is within your control and that is aspirational. So those are the criteria. It's within your control and it's aspirational, and it's not BS. I'll give you a couple examples. So I said before, I was worried that one of my stressful thoughts initially was things are never gonna be the same. Things are never gonna be the same. What does that mean about this or this or this? And what I realized was, it's true. Things probably are never gonna be the same in some ways. But that also means that there are endless possibilities. Some of the smartest people in our world are working hard to make our healthcare and the way that we pursue disease moving forward so that it's never like this again. Alex just wrote about this in one of his recent articles. There are incredible things happening all around the world to put us in a position of strength, having learned from this experience. And there are really endless possibilities that can come out of this in almost every area. And so now, I'm focusing more on that thought because it's giving me a much better sense of what are the steps I can take that are within my control to start to pursue some of those opportunities, personally and professionally, with my health, with my wealth, and so on. So let's say that you're concerned about your own health. Maybe your new truth is that if I follow CDC guidelines as they're stated, first of all, what percentage reduction in risk would that give me? And it's pretty significant if you look at the numbers. But also, what am I doing? What should I be doing? What am I going to do to improve my immunity, to improve the way I've taken care of myself or the way I want to take care of myself moving forward? Within your control. Absolutely true. Let's say you're concerned about your finances. Many of us are. Or many of us are certainly feeling anxious about it. Is it true to say that even if you took losses early on in this crisis, you have learned a thing or two that you can put to work to make sure that doesn't happen again? If not, I suggest you go find those answers. But here's one idea. Did you use stop losses? Could you put stop losses in place? Could you even put slightly tighter stop losses if you're feeling very risk averse? That would help to make sure that no matter what happens, even if the economy or the stock market did crash again, you had a tighter measure of protection. Could you diversify more? Or were you invested in growth stocks only? Did your stocks pay dividends? Do you have any dividend positions? What's the makeup of your investment portfolio? Those are all lessons we can learn from, and there are actions we can take with a greater sense of confidence having learned those lessons. So on this next side, come up with what are your new realities? What are your new truths that are within your control and that are aspirational about the life you want to live from here? Take just a second. I'll write a few things down and then we'll finish it off. Okay. Again, if you need a minute, please take it. I'm going to keep moving. The last thing, and this is how we'll close. I saw a great interview with an astronaut who had spent more than 5 months in isolation on the International Space Station recently. And he talked about how some of the fears, he had moments where he was overtaken by fear and he was all alone. And he developed a way of getting beyond that fear. And he described it as competence is the solution to fear. And oftentimes when we're afraid of something, it's something we don't fully understand. So here's my suggestion to you. Take these new truths, whatever they are, whatever you came up with, and in the coming weeks and days and months, take some time to both refine and continue to embellish on these, and make sure you come back and reference these. These are the kinds of, truths you want to be empowered by when you're making decisions about your wealth and your health and your relationships and everything else in your life. And start to do some research to put some facts and data and specifics behind some of these new realities. I promise you that if you go through this experience, continuing to call out those stressful thoughts when you feel them, look at them for what they are, and then come up with an empowering alternative that fits some of these criteria, I assure you, you will make decisions from a place of strength that will allow you to make the most of this experience and to thrive from here forward. I want to thank you again for joining me, and I will see you next time for Survive and Thrive.